Hello there, people of the internet. I absolutely understand that this video is going to upset some people, but I'm still going to go ahead and make it because I want my 2 cents to be known. During my time of making the military surplus content that I make, I hear a lot of people say that the Lee Enfield series of rifles is a better series of rifles than other rifles out there because it has a 10-round capacity. Typically, your Enfield rifles are going to be 303 British, and they're going to have a 10-round capacity unless you get one that's like been artificially modified for 5 rounds for, say, like hunting or legal restrictions or anything like that. For the most part, they're going to be 10 rounds. And if you're in a situation where you have to use a rifle for any practical purpose to the point to where you have to debate on which rifle is going to be better, the Lee Enfield, the Mosin, the Mauser, or insert your choice of other bolt-action rifle here, then there's a lot of little tiny nuances. I would go ahead and gauge them all to be about the same. But if you find yourself in a situation where you have to actually use one, then you got to gauge your pros and cons. And a lot of people give that 10-round magazine they give that as a huge pro to the Lee Enfield system. And it's not as big of a pro as a lot of people make it out to be. Now, if you're going to go out and you're only going to shoot that 10 rounds, then yeah, it's a pro. But if you're in a practical situation, this particular bolt has been giving me all sorts of trouble. If you're in a practical sort of situation, the likelihood of you needing, if you're in a situation that requires you to pick which rifle is going to be best because the tiny pros and tiny cons of each individual rifle is strenuous enough to where you think that it matters, the odds of you sending more than 10 rounds of ammunition downrange is going to be pretty gosh darn significant. If you're just going to be taking one of these rifles out for, say, hunting or as, I don't know, a range toy or for camping or anything like that, then, dude, these arguments don't matter at all. You're going to have the same results with a Mosin Nagant as you would with a Mauser, as you would with a Lee Enfield. But we're talking about if you had to actually use one for, like, life and liberty, protection, defense, whatever it is that you decide to use your Lee Enfield for. So that 10-round magazine, yes, you do have the benefits of that 10-round magazine, but once that 10 rounds is up, it's up. And then you have to focus on reloading that 10 rounds. And if you have, say, Lee Enfield 303 British ammunition in a stripper clip like what I have right here, these are difficult to load. Like, way more difficult than people give them credit for. I would recommend going out and getting yourself one of these and seeing how difficult it is to actually load these things in comparison to a faster loading system like, say, a Mauser. And this is where we have to look at what would be more important. Having more capacity inside your magazine but a longer reload time, or having less capacity in your magazine but you can reload much, much faster. Ultimately, I think with the Mauser, you would be able to send more lead downrange more quickly. You would have that first 10 shots with this right here, but then reloading these things again can be a pain. This is a military surplus clip. It's not a reproduction, and this is military surplus ammunition. Granted, it has been deactivated, and that's why I feel comfortable doing what it is that I'm going to be doing in this video while currently inside my house. But this right here is like the smoothest Lee Enfield ammunition setup that you can get for reloading these rifles, and even then it's not that great. Since they're rimmed cartridges, there's a lot of additional surface area inside these things. A lot of people will tell you to pull up on this and press down with your thumb and whatnot, and that does kind of work sometimes, sort of. But if you need a special technique to be able to reload your rifle with any adequate speed, it's not a good design. But even if we do pull this up and push this down to the best of my abilities, this is not, oh, we just lost the ball, but that's not the fault of what we got going on here. This particular bolt is just a little bit on the loose side. So not including the time that I'm spending putting this bolt back in, but pushing all those rounds into the magazine, and then you gotta pull your stripper clip out of your stripper clip guide and then grab a second one and do that same exact thing all over again. It takes a tremendous amount of time to reload rimmed cartridges into a 10-round magazine with 5-round clips. Even if you want to make the arguing point of you don't have to load the full 10 rounds, you can just load 5, that is still a significantly slower process than doing a rimless cartridge like, say, a Mauser. Like, for example, if I grab my Mauser right here. Alright, so I have my Mauser, and I just fired my last 8mm Mauser round. Bang! Open her up, I am out of ammunition, I got my stripper clip in, loaded, closed, and I am back to firing this thing. It is just significantly less surface area on the stripper clip, along with a significantly more modern design of cartridge, simply because it is a rimless cartridge. It is a faster system to be able to reload the Mauser than it is to be able to reload the Lee Enfield. So if you're firing more than 10 shots, the lower capacity on the Mauser, just because of the ease of being able to reload it faster, is going to be your better option. Even if you are firing that 10 shots, you do have that reload with the Mauser. Granted, there's certain factors that go into that, like a person's skill or capabilities with the Lee Enfield rifle. Like, I have no doubts that the Lee Enfield could send 10 rounds faster than the Mauser ever could. But I'm betting that the Mauser could send, say, 20 rounds faster than the Lee Enfield could. Do you need that much firepower? I don't know. But I've always been one to advocate having more capability than what it is that you actually need. Granted, what we're discussing here is a very gross and dramatic misrepresentation of what that statement actually means. But hopefully you guys understand what it is that I'm actually talking about. With something like this, you do get that higher capacity. But once you run out of that capacity, you're gonna have one heck of a time reloading this thing, especially under pressure, especially if you need a special technique to be able to do it. And you better hope that the rounds that you have loaded into this thing are either loaded properly into that stripper clip or have a chamfer on the cartridge, which most of your modern-made 303 British ammunition does not, in which case this stuff right here will you'll have to deal with rim lock. Really not that big of a deal. You can kind of force your way through it, but it is something that exists, and it might jam up your rifle. Now, some people might say go with an Ishapur 2A1 and 7.62 NATO. Those things are very finicky, especially the magazines on those things. They're not near as smooth of a system or an action as your 303 British Lee Enfields are. As much as we love to say how great those rifles are, they're really not all that great. Although they are pretty good. 10 rounds of 7.62 NATO, that's a modern ammo. And they can be reloaded fairly quickly. But again, they're finicky, the magazines on them tend to not be very good, and the stripper clips, like the effort of loading one of those from a Mauser style stripper clip, which is what you would run the 7.62 NATO ammunition through, it's just not great. The charger bridge from the #1 SMLE style of system just does not lend itself to being all that great with that particular style of stripper clip. It's just one of those things where you can try and make it better, but it's still not going to be as good as, say, something like a Mauser. Now, the Mosin is kind of like the worst of both worlds. You got a rimmed cartridge that doesn't really feed into the rifle all that quickly or all that well, and it's got a magazine cut-off system, sort of, to kind of protect from rim lock that doesn't really work all that well either, and you only get your 5 rounds, which is really not that great. So the Mosin is kind of its own animal. But for the people saying that the SMLE is vastly superior because of that 10-round magazine, that's fantastic if you're only firing those 10 rounds. But if you ever have to fire more, which I highly recommend you have the capabilities to be able to fire more ammunition, that's where you start to run into difficulties. So there's my little rant on this. Thanks for watching, folks. I appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description has a link to all sorts of stuff down below. I have a bunch of these, and I've tried them with I've tried a bunch of these different clips before filming with a bunch of different ammunition before filming to see what was the smoothest and what was the best, and they all sucked. Like, loading 303 from a stripper clip is just not great. So, you guys go off, have a fantastic day. I'll see you on the next episode. That is the end of my rant.
Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.